Far is the next programme for schools and colleges, beginning in 1 minute. Would teachers please note that the dates of the summer broadcasting term will be Monday the 21st of April until Friday the 20th of June 1980.
The earth we live on seems solid and unchanging. But is it? These are casts of people killed by an erupting volcano. It happened 2,000 years ago to the people of Pompeii. Pompeii was a Roman town in southern Italy. The people lived in fine houses with shady courtyards. They grew rich crops of grapes and olives on the side of a mountain called Vesuvius. They didn't know that the mountain was a volcano, but they found out when it erupted. A boy of 17 described it in a letter. Great sheets of flame and fire flashed out. Ashes fell thick and hot, and also hot stones and cinders. My mother begged me to get away. She said that she would stay because she couldn't run fast enough. I took her hand and pulled her with me. Everything went dark as the smoke covered us. We could only hear women screaming, children wailing, men shouting. The boy and his mother lived, but many died. Today, archaeologists have uncovered the ancient city. They made these plaster casts from the traces of the dead bodies. The solid earth is less firm than it seems. It has other surprises besides volcanoes. This is Peru in South America. These people also live in the shade of a great mountain. They lead a very simple life. They weave cloth and prepare corn. They use what they need and take the rest to market. It seemed as though nothing could change the pattern of their lives. But at 3:23 on the afternoon of May the 31st, 1970, the mountain shook. The earth trembled, buildings fell, and then a wave of mud and stones slid down, burying everything in its path. No trace of the town remains, except 4 palm trees. These ones stood in the middle of the market square. It was the result of an earthquake. Earthquakes can even happen in Britain. On Boxing Day 1979, people from Aberdeen to Belfast felt the earth move. The people of Colchester once experienced an earthquake too, but theirs was the most destructive on record in Britain. It happened nearly 100 years ago. I went to the town to see what I could find out for myself about what has become known as the Great English Earthquake. The sensible place to start is in the public library. Libraries often have books and pictures about the local history of their town, and in Colchester I saw a collection of records of the earthquake. Looking at the old photographs, I could see that it had done a lot of damage. This church lost its spire. And look at the roofs of these houses. But how did the local newspapers report it? To read those, I had to go to the reference section of the library. Old newspapers are too fragile to allow everyone to handle them, so here they've been photographed onto microfilm. The microfilm reading machine projects the photographs onto a screen, so they're quite easy to read once you've found the bit you want. Many of the buildings that were damaged are still standing. This is the church that lost its spire. But the rest of the church seems to have been all right. This building lost its chimney. It fell through the roof. And everyone wanted to pose for their photographs by the ruins. The worst damage was by the river downstream from Colchester. People on boats in the river saw the buildings heave up and down as though the houses, not the boats, were on the water. These cottages have been restored now, but look at the state they were in just after the earthquake. The roofs were completely wrecked. The new bricks that were used to repair them can still be seen today. No one was killed in Colchester, but a really severe earthquake can kill thousands, because it happened so fast, causing buildings to collapse on the people inside. If you want to know what an earthquake feels like, you might be able to visit the Geological Museum in London. They have a floor which moves just as the ground moves in an earthquake. Seeing like this, of course, it's rather fun. But a real earthquake is quite terrifying. Scientists get some idea of the intensity of an earthquake, the amount of shaking, by the way it affects things in people's homes. If we put a few things on this floor, you can see what they look for. Intensity 4 is a gentle shake. This hanging birdcage sways a little, but if you were in bed, you probably wouldn't feel anything at all. It's like a heavy lorry going past. There are quite a few quakes in Britain of intensity 4. Intensity 6 seems to be about the strongest you get in Britain. That earthquake in Colchester was probably about intensity 6. The hanging birdcage really gets bounced around, and that's not all. If we go to intensity 8, things really begin to happen. Imagine this happening in your own home. What if we go up to intensity 10, but outdoors in real life? It makes a wreck of everything. Fortunately, though, we don't have earthquakes quite like that in this country. I've got with me a geologist, Ian Mercer. Ian, we don't have earthquakes very often at all in Britain, do we?
Well, yes, we do, but they're not very big ones.
Do we actually know we've had them, then?
Well, they have to be detected on an instrument like this.
Well, that looks very complicated.
Well, the principle is very simple and very old. Let's take a look at this ancient Chinese earthquake detector.
Well, that's fabulous. What are these dragons' heads all the way around the outside?
And in each dragon's mouth there is a ball, and beneath each dragon there is a frog with an open mouth.
Now, how on earth does that detect earthquakes?
Well, let's take a look inside. In the centre here is a heavy lump of metal hanging down from a string, and connected to the top of the metal are levers which go to each dragon's head. Now, in an earthquake, the earth and the casing will move, but the lump of metal in the middle will tend to stay still, and so it works the levers. Let's just cheat a little and move the metal lump.
Ah, lots of earthquakes. Now, you said that's the same as this one. It doesn't look at all similar.
It does look rather different, but if you look in the middle here, here is the heavy lump in the middle here, and here, of course, is the casing.
This moves, does it?
Yes, if I move it like this, you'll see that the heavy lump stays still,
yes,
and while the casing is
moving. It's not
moving.
moving very much, though, is it?
Well, the movement has to be enlarged electrically onto this recorder here.
I see.
If you'd like to switch that on, let's create an earthquake.
Ah, I see. Now, do all the main earthquakes happen just in one part of the world?
Oh, no, they are grouped together along certain lines in the Earth. Let's take a look at a globe over here.
Right.
Some years ago, scientists started drawing lines through all of those places on the Earth where most earthquakes happen. And look at the result.
They make a pattern, don't they?
Yes, most of the Earth's earthquakes are along these lines, but away from them, such as in Britain, the risk is very much less.
Oh, I'm glad about that. What about volcanoes, though? Can they happen anywhere?
Well, you'd think so, wouldn't you? With all that white hot rock so very close to you.
Where exactly?
Just below your feet. The surface of the Earth is cold, hard rock, on the land and under the sea. Most of the inside is solid too, but it's hot, white hot. The ground on which we live is just a thin shell around the outside of this white hot furnace. At the most, the shell is only 100 kilometers deep. The top surface of the shell, where we live, is the Earth's crust. In some places, the hot rock below forces its way up into the shell. On the way, it turns to a thick liquid. In the shell, it forms a deep pool of magma, red-hot molten rock. The magma is hot enough to melt the solid rock above and can force its way right through the shell. If it reaches the surface, it can explode out into the air. Thick dust and liquid rock pour out, making a volcano. The liquid rock that comes out is called lava. The dust is usually called ash. Volcanoes can erupt with great force. In 1884, a volcano exploded on the other side of the world. These quick sketches were made to record the effect of the eruption on the English sky. The volcano Krakatoa, the loudest bang in history. It couldn't be heard in England, but the sunsets were made brilliant by clouds of dust from the explosion. Here, in Britain, we have had our own volcanoes, thousands of them. Arthur's Seat, a well-known lump of rock that sticks out over Edinburgh, is part of an old volcano. It doesn't look like a volcano now, but this is what it was like millions of years ago, when the sea covered the land where Edinburgh now stands. You can see Edinburgh's volcanic rocks from the air. In Wales, Mount Snowdon was also once part of a volcano. Today, its jagged mountain tops are all that is left of a giant volcano that was also once surrounded by sea. Now the sea is gone, and the volcano is long dead.
But there aren't any active volcanoes in Britain nowadays, are there, Ian?
No, not now. But let's take another look at this globe to see where the volcanoes are now.
Well, what we've got on there at the moment are the earthquake lines, aren't they?
Yes, this is where the big earthquakes are in the world today. Now, let's switch on the volcanoes to see where they are.
That's extraordinary. The volcanoes seem to fall almost exactly on the earthquake lines. Is that a coincidence?
Oh, no, it's not a coincidence, but geologists only realized this in the early 1960s.
And what's the reason for it, then?
Well, you see, along these lines, this is where the Earth's shell is actively squeezing and splitting apart. So rather like a cracked eggshell, the Earth's shell is divided into separate plates.
I see. And it's along the edge of these plates that you're getting the volcanoes and earthquakes happening?
Yes, it's along here that all the action is. So the shell of the Earth is divided into separate plates, which press and squeeze and move against each other. And wherever plates meet, such as here in California, you can expect the Earth to be very active. This is a place where two plates meet. It's called the San Andreas Fault. You can see the dividing line down the middle, where one plate is sliding very slowly past the other. The San Andreas Fault became famous when the Earth cracked in 1906. The city of San Francisco was built very near to the fault line. When the plates jerked in 1906, the city was shattered. Buildings toppled, ships were stranded, trains fell over. In the chaos, fire broke out and the city was totally destroyed.
Work morn, noon and night to make dear New Frisco the wonder of the age. But of course they've rebuilt San Francisco since then. I wouldn't like to be in one of today's skyscrapers, though, if an earthquake struck again.
These buildings are designed to be as safe as possible when the next earthquake comes.
But there won't be another in the same place, will there?
Yes, there will. The plates are still moving. You can see evidence of recent movement in the pavements. San Francisco could have another earthquake any time. In some places, the movement of plates produces more than just earthquakes. In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, two plates of the Earth's shell are moving apart. The seabed cracks open. Magma rises to fill the gap. Where it erupts, the volcano builds up new seabed and even new islands.
So new land is being created beneath the sea?
Yes, this is a new island. It was formed in 1963 near Iceland, in the Atlantic.
So the Earth is very active indeed.